Why is a bridge in Pittsburgh my problem as an American taxpayer here in Houston, Texas? All of us taxpayers should be asking that question. Welcome to Saving America. This is Dr. David D. Shine, and we're bringing up an event that happened a couple of weeks ago, but there's a certain background to the event that I think is very important. Wall Street Journal, which is one of my favorite publications, was talking about the fact that Biden shows up in Pittsburgh the morning after a bridge covered with snow collapsed in Pittsburgh. And Biden was out there, ironically, to promote the 1.2, well, of course, that's the reported number. The truth of the matter is we'll probably borrow about $2 trillion to cover what the feds claim is $1.2 trillion in new spending, but very little of it actually goes to infrastructure. And in fact, some of the conservatives have criticized Republicans for even voting for this turkey because it's presented as bipartisan. But the reality is that it's not a real infrastructure bill. And there's all sorts of billions and billions hidden in there to go to trash projects like, green energy and all this stuff. And again, keep in mind, Dr. Shine is not against controlling pollution. He's not against moving forward with alternative energy sources. I love those sources. But the reality is that America runs on fossil fuels, as does the rest of the world. And until we have economical, practical solutions, hey, you know what? As I've said in another edition, I can't afford a Tesla. Most Americans cannot afford to buy an electric vehicle, nor do most Americans who are in multifamily housing have the ability to charge these cars overnight, and they won't run the next day if you don't charge them at least every few days. The Wall Street Journal, let me read, it says that ridiculous false promise said he would fix all of the nation's 43,000 faltering bridges. The bill includes $40 billion in new funding for bridges, a pittance compared to the $156 billion for mass transit and rail that are bleeding cash. This again is the Wall Street Journal, due to generous labor agreements and low ridership. And while we're on the topic, it says government is about setting priorities, and bridges and roads took a distant back seat to green pork and the infrastructure bill. And again, we're quoting the article from the Wall Street Journal. I love it. Green pork and the infrastructure bill doesn't have real infrastructure in it. 40 billion is a pittance. But why are we, the federal taxpayers, subsidizing a bridge in Pittsburgh? Seems to me that unless it's part of the interstate highway system, and I don't think this bridge was, that this ought to be a problem at Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh residents should fix. And that's my point here. We need to start pushing things down to the local level. And then at the same time, we need to hold our local politicians responsible and make them do their job, be efficient with the tax dollars that we're paying them, and stop this nonsense of wasting money, wasting time, and get the job done. And if you can't get the job done, get somebody else in there. It's time for us to hold all levels of government accountable and to not stop looking to the clowns in DC who are wasting money at a ludicrous rate. For the United States, we have got to change the way we're doing things. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've got to stop looking to DC to fix our local bridges, but we also have to hold our local people accountable. Very good example of this is there's about 90% federal funding for high-speed rail. Houston put in a alleged high-speed rail line. You know what it is? It's an old-fashioned streetcar, just like the kind when I was in college in urban Philadelphia. I took a battered old dirty streetcar from my neighborhood where I could afford to live into the University of Pennsylvania campus. Yeah, it used to be 35 cents back then, not so much today. But the point is that the city of Houston is not Philadelphia. It doesn't have a totally dependent center city. It has multiple centers. And so we have had a horrendous problem with our local in-city traffic because these streetcars are in a fixed direction and they are not efficient. They have very, very little ridership. We need to stop providing federal money for local programs, including this ludicrous streetcar to nowhere, as I call it. And you know what should have been built at a much lower cost and would probably have attracted ridership is a monorail. Yes, folks. Yep, monorail. And I suggested it before. And why can't we build a subway? Well, because if you built a subway in Houston, it would be a water tunnel, and because of our high water table. Thanks for joining us today on Saving America. Hey, if you enjoyed this edition of Saving America, subscribe.